The night on the colony world was heavy with smoke and strange smells. Shadows stretched across the broken streets as traders called out their offers. The dark market was alive, filled with cages, strange lights, and whispers. Creatures from many worlds cried out, some with claws, some with glowing eyes, some too broken to stand. People passed by without care, laughing, buying, selling, as if pain was only another coin. Among them walked a human, a soldier who had seen many wars. His name was not important here, because in this place names had no meaning. He moved carefully, eyes sharp, heart heavy. He had come searching for parts for his ship, nothing more. But the deeper he walked into the market, the colder his chest became. Something was wrong here, something he could not name. Voices grew louder around him. "Pleasure beasts for cheap," shouted one alien with silver skin. "Perfect toys, trained and chained," another called. He turned away, anger boiling, but he forced himself to stay calm. This world was cruel, and he knew better than to show weakness. Then he stopped. At first he thought it was just another cage, covered by metal bars and thick shadows. But then he saw the shape inside. Not beast, not alien, not machine. It was a girl. Her wrists were chained, her ankles too, her body bruised, her clothes torn. The crowd laughed at her, some even pointed, calling her pleasure animal. But her eyes were not broken. They burned with pain, yes, but also with something more, something human. The soldier froze, his breath caught. He felt the world around him blur, the market noise fading into nothing. She looked at him, not at the crowd, not at the chains, not at the ground, but directly at him, straight into his eyes. And then she spoke, her voice soft, trembling, yet clear enough to cut through the noise. "Take me home." The word struck him like a bihan. Laid. For a moment he could not move, could not think. How could she speak like him? How could she even be here? His hands tightened into fists. He wanted to shout, to break the bars, to tear apart the whole market. But he did not. The crowd was watching. The merchants were smiling, and the guards nearby had their weapons ready. A tall alien with a wide grin stepped forward. "You like her, human?" he asked, his voice dripping with mockery. "She is cheap because she is broken, too soft to fight, too wild to obey, not worth much." The crowd laughed again. The soldier's jaw tightened, his mind raced. If he showed anger, they would kill him, and her too. If he walked away, she would die here, chained forever. The girl's eyes never left his. "Take me home," she whispered again, this time weaker, as if the words cost her everything. He felt the weight of choice crush his chest. He had fought in wars, seen men die, seen worlds burn, but never had he felt such a moment. The crowd wanted him to move on, to ignore, to leave, but he could not. Not now, not after those words. Slowly, he stepped closer to the cage. The alien merchant raised an eyebrow, surprised. "You really want her? Foolish human, you don't know what she is." The soldier's voice was low, steady. "How much?" The alien grinned wider. 10,000 credits, he said. The crowd gasped. The price was too high for a broken animal. The soldier knew it was a trap, a cruel game, but he also knew he had no choice. His hand went to his belt, where his credit chip hung. He transferred the amount without hesitation. The merchant laughed, his eyes glowing with greed. "Then she is yours. But remember, human, you bought more than you understand." The chains clicked open. The girl stumbled forward, her legs weak, but her gaze still locked on him. He caught her before she could fall, her weight light but trembling with his strength. The crowd booed, some cursed, others laughed. The soldier ignored them, his focus only on her. As he turned to leave, the merchant's voice rang out once more. "She is dangerous, human. More dangerous than you will ever know." The words echoed in his mind as he led her away. The market noise returned, but now every sound felt sharper, heavier. He knew he had done something that could not be undone. The girl leaned against him, her lips close to his ear. "Thank you," she whispered, almost too soft to hear, and in that moment he understood his life had just changed forever. The night outside the market was colder than before. The soldier walked fast through narrow streets, the girl leaning on his arm, her chains dragging softly against the stone ground. Crowds pressed around them, merchants shouting, lights flickering, shadows twisting on every wall. He kept his head down, but he could feel the eyes of strangers following him, some curious, some cruel, all waiting to see what would happen. At the edge of the market, he stopped, pulling her into a darker alley. Her breathing was shallow, her body weak, yet her eyes still fixed on him. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken questions. He wanted to ask who she was, where she came from, why she spoke his language, but the words would not leave his mouth. Instead, he asked softly, "Can you walk?" She nodded once, but her legs trembled with every step. He tightened his grip, guiding her, feeling the heat of her skin through the torn cloth. For a moment, he thought of leaving the planet, escaping with her on his ship before anyone noticed, but deep inside he knew it would never be that simple. A sudden sound echoed behind them, heavy boots, metal clicking, voices raised in alien tongues. He turned, and from the shadows came 3 guards, tall, armored, carrying shock spears. One pointed at him and barked, "Stop, human! That one is not yours to take." The girl stiffened, her fingers tightening a row. On his sleeve, the soldier's hand moved toward his weapon, but he did not draw it yet. He knew these guards were not ordinary. They worked for the merchants, and the merchants were dangerous. If he killed them, the whole market would be on him. If he surrendered, the girl would be dragged back to the cage. It was a choice between war and shame, between danger and safety. The leader stepped closer, his eyes glowing yellow. "She belongs to the House of Chains. No human coin can buy her. Leave her and live." The soldier's jaw clenched. He remembered the girl's voice, the way she had whispered, "Take me home." Those words echoed again and again, striking harder than any weapon. He stood tall, his voice firm. "I paid. She is mine now." The guards laughed, their voices sharp like broken glass. One slammed the spear against the ground, sending sparks into the air. "Foolish human, you do not understand what you carry," the leader said. "Give her up, or we will break you both." The girl suddenly stepped forward, her chains rattling like thunder. Her lips moved, whispering something in a language he could not know. The guards froze for half a heartbeat, their faces showing fear before they quickly hid it. The soldiers saw it, the way their eyes widened at her voice. She was more than they wanted anyone to see. The soldier made his choice. With one swift move, he drew his blaster and fired at the nearest wall lamp. The light exploded in a shower of sparks, the alley thrown into shadows. He grabbed the girl and pulled her into the dark, running hard. The guards shouted, their boots hammering the ground behind them. Bolts of light cut through the night, striking walls, cracking stone. But the soldier did not stop, his breath harsh, his mind clear. Through twisting alleys and broken doors he led her, until the market noise faded into silence. Finally, they collapsed behind an abandoned building, hidden under fallen beams and old metal. The girl coughed, her body trembling, but she did not cry. Her eyes burned with strange light, and for the first time he felt she was not weak at all. She looked at him and whispered, "They fear me." Her words made his blood run cold. He asked, "Why? Who are you?" But she only shook her head, pressing her forehead against her chained hands. The soldier leaned back against the cold wall, his heart pounding. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to abandon this path, to leave her. But another voice inside him whispered louder. If he left her, he would carry the shame forever. If he kept her, he would carry the danger forever. This was the choice. This was the point where his life would turn. Above them, the sound of patrol ships roared through the sky, lights sweeping across the ruins. He knew they were searching. He knew time was short. The girl raised her head again, her eyes shining strangely even in the dark. She whispered with a voice that carried both fear and hope, "You should leave me, but if you don't, you will never be the same." The soldier stared at her, his jaw tight, his hands trembling. He thought of the wars, the blood, the men he could not save. He thought of her eyes in that cage, the way they had begged without shame, and he knew the answer. He could not walk away, not now, not ever. Slowly, he reached for the broken chains. "I made my choice," he said, his voice steady like steel. "You're coming with me." The ruins shook with the sound of heavy steps. The soldier pressed his back against the wall, holding the girl close, his weapon ready. Dust fell from the ceiling, the air thick with smoke from the broken lamps. He could hear the guards outside, voices barking orders, spears sparking with power. They were closing in, and time was running out. The girl lifted her head, her chains clinking softly. Her eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, strange and unearthly. She whispered, "They will not stop. They win, boy. They'll hunt until one of us is gone." The soldier nodded, his jaw tight. He had been hunted before, but this time felt different. This time he was not running for himself, but for her. The first guard stepped into the ruins, his torch cutting through the shadows. The soldier waited, breath steady, finger on the trigger. When the guard came closer, he fired once. The blast struck the torch, plunging the room back into darkness. Before the guard could shout, the soldier slammed him against the wall. The fight was fast, brutal, silent. When the body fell, he pulled the girl to her feet. "Move now," he whispered. They ran through the cracks of the old building, stepping over broken beams and rusted pipes. The night outside was alive with noise. Sirens wailed, patrol lights swept the streets, metal hounds barked in the distance. Every shadow seemed dangerous, every step louder than thunder. The soldier guided her through narrow alleys, always turning, never stopping. But still, the sound of pursuit grew closer. At one corner, they found a group of merchants loading cargo into hover carts. The soldier raised his weapon, forcing them to scatter. He grabbed one of the carts, threw the chains off the girl, and pushed her onto the seat. "Hold tight," he said. Then he slammed the controls, and the cart roared forward. The speed nearly threw them both, but he held the handle tight. Behind them, shouts rose, weapons fired, sparks filled the night. The hover cart flew through the broken streets, bouncing over cracks and holes. The girl clung to the side, her hair whipping in the wind, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. The soldier kept his focus forward, weaving between broken towers and fallen bridges. But the hunters were fast. A patrol bike swung in behind them, its engine screaming, its rider aiming a spear. The soldier turned the cart sharply, sparks flying as they scraped. Against stone walls, the spear bolt missed by inches, exploding against the ground in a flash of fire. The girl suddenly cried out, raising her chained hands. A wave of force rippled from her, invisible but strong. The patrol bike swerved violently, crashing into a wall with a burst of flame. The soldier's eyes widened. "What was that?" he shouted over the roar of the wind. She shook her head, fear in her face. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. Her voice was small, broken, but the power in her was undeniable. More hunters appeared ahead, blocking the path. The soldier cursed under his breath, pulling the cart into a sharp turn down a narrow tunnel. The cart scraped against the walls, sparks showering, the engine whining. The girl held on, her knuckles white. The tunnel opened suddenly into the old shipyard. Hundreds of rusted ships lay broken, towers of scrap reaching into the night sky. It was a graveyard of machines, silent, vast, and dark. He steered the cart deep into the yard, weaving through piles of steel and twisted metal. The hunters followed, their lights sweeping across the junk like predators searching for prey. The soldier killed the cart's engine and pulled the girl behind a broken hull. They crouched in silence, hearts pounding, voices echoed through the yard, cold and sharp. "She cannot leave this world," one hunter growled. "She is the property of the chains," another hissed. The girl pressed against the soldier, trembling. "They know me," she whispered. "They know what I am." The soldier placed a hand on her shoulder, steady, firm. "You are not property," he said, his voice low. "You are not theirs. You are free." The words seemed strange in the silence, but she held on to them as if they were light in the darkness. The hunters spread out, their lights growing closer. The soldier readied his weapon again, but before he could act, the girl reached out, touching the broken metal beside her. The steel shivered, humming with strange energy. The lights of the hunters flickered, their voices stuttering. Then the girl's eyes flared bright, and a pulse of force surged outward. The hunters were thrown back, weapons flying, lights shattering. The night was filled with silence once more. The girl collapsed, her strength gone, her body trembling. The soldier caught her before she hit the ground, holding her close. Her breath was weak, her lips pale. She whispered faintly, "I don't want to be a weapon." His chest tightened at the words. He looked at her, at the broken chains, at the fear in her eyes, and he made another choice. "Then you won't be," he said, his voice steady. "I will not let them use you again." Above them, more patrol ships roared in the sky, the chase far from over. But for the first time, the girl closed her eyes with a small, fragile hope, and the soldier knew the real escape had only just begun. The shipyard was silent again, broken ships rising like bones under the pale moon. The soldier carried the girl in his arms, her head resting against his chest, her breath weak, her body shaking. He moved quickly, searching for safety, weaving between piles of rust and steel. Finally, he found his old transport hidden under layers of scrap, a small vessel, scarred from battles but still alive. With careful steps, he lifted her inside, sealing the hatch behind them. The air inside smelled of oil and dust, but it was safer than the open night. He placed her gently on a seat, cutting the last of her chains with his knife. The metal clattered to the floor, the sound sharp in the quiet cabin. For a moment, she looked at the broken chains as if they were ghosts that refused to leave her. Then she raised her eyes to him, glowing faintly, fragile but unbroken. The soldier knelt beside her, his voice steady but low. "You saved us back there," he said. "What did you do?" Her hands trembled, her fingers curling again. Just her knees. "I don't know how to explain," she whispered. "It is inside me. It has always been inside me." Her words carried fear, like a secret spoken for the first time. He watched her carefully, his eyes sharp, his mind racing. He had seen many weapons in war, but never a girl who could shatter hunters with a single pulse of force. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice heavy. She looked away, her shoulders trembling. "I was made, not born," she whispered. "I was created in a place of steel and pain, my blood mixed, my body shaped, my voice trained to obey." Her words struck him like a blade. He leaned closer, his voice softer now. "Made? By who? She shook her head slowly, her eyes filled with pain. Humans, she said, the word breaking in her throat. Your kind. They built me in a lab. They called me Project Eve, but when I failed their test, they sold me to the chains. Her voice cracked, her breath shivered, and she covered her face with her hands. I was nothing to them. Nothing but an experiment. Nothing but a weapon that did not work right. The soldier felt his chest tighten, guilt twisting inside him. He had fought for humans, bled for them, believed in their wars, and now, here was proof of their cruelty, a girl who should have been free, sold as if she were no more than cargo. He reached out, gently pulling her hands away from her face. You are not nothing, he said, his voice firm. You are alive, you are real, you are more human than they will ever be. She blinked at him, her eyes wet with tears she had not noticed. No one had spoken to her like that before. No one had looked at her as anything but a tool. For a moment, the chains inside her heart felt lighter, but then she shook her head, fear returning. They will not stop, she whispered. The hunters, the merchants, even the humans who made me, they will all come because I am not allowed to exist. The soldier stood, moving to the cockpit. He powered the ship's systems, the engines humming like old beasts waking from sleep. The cabin lights flickered on, shadows due. Ansing across the walls, he checked the radar, his eyes narrowing. Patrol signals pulsed across the map, growing closer. They're already looking, he muttered. The girl pulled herself weakly to her feet, holding onto the wall for balance. She walked to him, her voice low, almost a plea. You should let me go. If you stay with me, they will kill you. He turned, his face hard, his voice steady. I made my choice. I'm not leaving you. Her lips parted, but no words came. Something inside her shifted, a small spark of hope, fighting the shadows of fear. She sat beside him, her eyes watching the stars through the cracked glass of the cockpit. Slowly she whispered, Home. I don't even know what that means anymore. The soldier looked at her, his voice calm. Then we will find it, together. The engines roared, lifting the ship from the shipyard. Dust and metal scattered into the night as they rose. Below, light spread across the ruins, hunters flooding the ground, their weapons flashing, their voices screaming. But the ship broke free, climbing higher into the black sky. The planet grew smaller below, its scars fading into distance. In the silence of space, the girl closed her eyes. Memories burned inside her, memories of cold rooms, white lights, voices calling her subject, weapon, failure. But when she opened her eyes again, she saw the soldier beside her, steady, real, unshaken. For the first time, she felt she was not alone. She touched her chest lightly, whispering, Thank you. He gave no answer, but his eyes said enough. The secret was no longer hidden, and the journey had only begun. The ship drifted into the black sea of space, its engines humming low. The soldier sat at the controls, eyes sharp, scanning the radar again and again. The girl sat behind him, silent, her gaze fixed on the stars outside, her hands trembling against her knees. For a moment there was quiet, a fragile peace that almost felt real. But peace never lasted long, not for him, not for her. The radar beeped once, then twice, sharp and cold. 3 signals appeared, moving fast, closing in from the left side. Patrol ships, hunters. The soldier's chest tightened, his hands steady on the controls. They found us, he muttered. The girl leaned forward, her eyes wide. They will not stop, she whispered. They were trained to follow, to kill. They won't leave without me. The soldier gave a hard smile, one that carried no joy. Then we make sure they never take you. The first hunter ship appeared in the window, sleek and sharp like a blade. It opened fire, bolts of red light slamming into the soldier's shields, shaking the whole vessel. The girl cried out, gripping the seat. The soldier twisted the controls, spinning the ship through the fire. Alarms screamed, metal groaned, but the engines held. 2 more hunters closed from behind, their engines roaring like beasts. The soldier's fingers flew across the controls, weapons charging. He fired back, bolts of blue cutting across the dark, striking one hunter's wing. The ship spun out, flames bursting, but the others pressed closer, relentless, merciless. The girl's breath grew sharp, her eyes glowing faintly again. She pressed her hands against the wall of the cabin, whispering words in that strange language. The soldier glanced back, alarm flashing across his face. "What are you doing?" he shouted. Her voice trembled. "I can help. I have to help." Energy rippled through the cabin, unseen but heavy. The ship's lights flickered. He air buzzing like a storm. Outside, the hunters slowed, their engines sputtering, one ship's weapons jammed, sparks flashing across its hull. The girl gasped, her body shaking, her strength draining fast. The soldier shouted, "Stop! You'll burn yourself out!" but she shook her head, her voice breaking. "I can't stop, not until they're gone." The hunters pulled back, regrouping. Then more signals appeared on the radar. 5, 6, 7. The soldier cursed under his breath, his chest heavy. "They sent a whole fleet," he growled. The girl's eyes filled with despair. "They will never let me go," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I was built to be theirs, to be hunted, to be owned." The soldier slammed a hand on the console, his voice sharp. "No, you are not theirs. You are not anyone's. You are free." His words were steel, cutting through the fear. She looked at him, tears forming, hope flickering. For the first time, she wanted to believe. The hunters opened fire again, the black sky lit with streaks of burning red. The soldier pushed the engines harder, the ship trembling as it dove between asteroids. Rocks spun around them, colliding, shattering, creating chaos in the void. The hunters followed, weaving through the storm, their weapons cutting close. Every second was a knife edge, every turn a gamble. The girl pressed her forehead against the seat, whispering. Her body glowed faintly, her hands shaking with energy. Then the asteroid field twisted, rocks shifting unnaturally. The hunters' paths collapsed, two ships colliding in a burst of flame. The soldier turned in shock, eyes wide. "You moved the rocks," he said, his voice almost a whisper. She shook her head weakly, tears on her face. "I didn't mean to, it just happens when I'm afraid." Her power was wild, uncontrolled, dangerous. But in that danger, there was also salvation. The soldier guided the ship deeper into the asteroid belt, weaving between narrow tunnels of stone. The hunters struggled to follow, their formation breaking. One by one, they fell, their ships colliding with rock or tearing apart under pressure. At last, silence returned. The ship floated between two giant stones, hidden in their shadow. The radar showed no more signals, only the quiet hum of empty space. The girl slumped in her seat, her body weak, her breath shallow. The soldier moved to her side, kneeling, his voice softer now. "You saved us," he said, "but it nearly killed you." She looked at him, her eyes heavy. "I don't want this," she whispered. "I don't want to be a weapon. I don't want to hurt anyone." He placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and steady. "Then we'll find another way, together," he said, his voice carrying the weight of promise. Outside, the stars burned cold and endless, but inside the small ship, a fragile bond grew stronger. The hunters would return, stronger, deadlier, but for now they were gone. And in the silence, the soldier and the girl knew their fight was only beginning. The silence inside the ship stretched long. Only the low hum of the engines filled the air. The soldier sat at the controls, scanning the dark, watching for any new signals. The girl lay in the back, her eyes half closed, her body weak after the fight. She looked fragile now, yet he could still feel the hidden power within her, like fire under glass. He opened the data screen, his fingers moving fast. If the hunters kept coming, they had to know why. He searched the old networks, digging into encrypted files, stealing fragments of forgotten records. The system cracked open slowly, spilling out reports, notes, experiments. The soldier's eyes narrowed as he read, and with every line, his chest grew heavier. The words were clear, cold, without mercy. Project Eve, hybrid weapon program. Human and alien genetic material combined for combat use. Subject classified as unstable, emotional, unable to obey full control. The soldier felt his stomach twist. They had made her, tested her, and when she failed to be their perfect soldier, they discarded her like broken metal. They sold her to the alien markets, traded her as if she were nothing but property. His hands shook on the console, anger rising like fire. He turned toward her, his voice low. "Is this true? Did humans do this to you?" The girl opened her eyes, tears already forming. She nodded slowly, her voice breaking. "Yes. They called me subject. They called me tool. I was never a child, never free, only tested, always chained." Her words cracked like glass. She buried her face in her hands, whispering, "I tried to be what they wanted. I tried to obey, but I felt too much. I cared too much. They said I was broken." The soldier's chest ached. He had fought wars for humans, killed for them, believed in their orders, but now he saw their cruelty, their lies, their cold hunger for power. His voice was harsh, filled with guilt. "They betrayed you. They betrayed everything we were supposed to stand for." She looked at him through her tears, her voice soft. "Do you hate me? Because I am not fully human?" He shook his head sharply, leaning closer. "No, I hate them. Not you. You are more human than anyone who made you suffer." His voice was steel, and his eyes carried no doubt. Her lips trembled, her tears falling. No one had ever said those words to her. No one had ever called her human, not once. For the first time, she let herself believe it might be true. She reached out slowly, her hand trembling, resting against his arm. "You don't know what you risk by keeping me," she whispered. "They will come, not just the hunters, but the humans too. They will want me back, or they will want me dead." The soldier placed his hand over hers, firm and steady. "Then let them come. I won't give you up." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with something new. Not fear, not despair, but the beginning of trust. The radar beeped softly again, not hunters this time, but signals of nearby stations. The soldier adjusted course, guiding the ship toward a hidden relay in deep orbit. "We need more answers," he said. "If they built you, then there are more records, more secrets. I need to know everything." The girl nodded slowly, wiping her tears, her voice steadier now, though still soft. "They feared me, but not because I was broken. They feared me because I was different, because I could feel, because I could choose." Her words carried weight, the truth heavy but clear. The ship docked at the abandoned relay, its doors creaking open like a tomb. Inside, dust floated in the air, screens flickering weakly as power returned. The soldier moved quickly, searching the databanks, pulling out hidden files. The girl followed slowly, her steps unsteady, but her eyes sharp. Together, they uncovered the rest of the story. The files told of more experiments, rows of names, subjects built and erased. Most had died, some destroyed in training, others sold off as failures. The girl was one of the last, one of the few to survive. Her code name was Eve 7, a number branded into her file like a wound. But in the margins, one line stood out. Subject shows unexpected resistance to control, emotional response to human contact unusually strong. The soldier read it aloud, his voice bitter. They called it a flaw, but it was the only thing that made you alive. The girl's face hardened, her fear twisting into quiet anger. "They never wanted me to live, only to serve." Her voice grew colder, sharper. "And now they will hunt us both." The soldier closed the file, his jaw set. "Then let them come," he said again, his voice like steel. "This truth is theirs to carry, but you are mine to protect." The girl looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. For the first time, her fear was joined by something else, a fire of her own, small but rising. She whispered, "Maybe I don't have to run forever. Maybe I can fight." The soldier gave a hard smile, one that held no fear. "Not alone," he said. "Never alone." And as the relay lights flickered, the truth of her past hung heavy in the air. But in that same air, a new path was forming. The path of choice, the path of defiance. The truth had been revealed, and it could never be taken back. The relay station floated silent in the black sea of space. The soldier stood at the console, scanning the last of the files, his eyes cold, his jaw set. The girl stood beside him, her shadow long in the dim light, her chains gone, her hands free, but her heart still heavy. They now knew the truth, all of it, and truth was heavier than any weapon. Suddenly the radar screamed, dozens of signals appeared, filling the screen like a swarm, hunters, merchants, and worse, human warships. The girl's breath caught, her voice shaking. "They came for me," she whispered. "All of them, at once." The soldier's hands tightened on the console, his voice sharp. "Then this is where we make our stand." The relay trembled as the fleet arrived, shadows blotting out the stars. Hunters in black ships, merchants in gold, human destroyers sharp as blades, their voices came through the comms, cold and proud. "Subject Eve 7, surrender, you belong to us. Return the weapon, soldier, or die with her." The soldier stood tall, his voice steady. "She is not your weapon, she is not your property, she is human and she is free." The comms erupted in laughter, cruel and mocking. One human commander's voice cut through the noise. "You were one of us once, soldier. You know she is a danger, she must be destroyed." The girl's eyes filled with fear, but also with fire. She stepped forward, her voice strong though trembling. "I am not a danger. I am not a we. Even I only want to live." The silence that followed was sharp, filled with disbelief. Then the fleet opened fire. Bolts of burning light struck the relay, shaking it to its core. Metal screamed, walls cracked, alarms wailed. The soldier grabbed the girl's arm, pulling her back into the ship. Engines roared as they broke free of the relay, diving into the storm of fire. The void exploded around them, flames and wreckage scattering. The girl's eyes glowed, her body trembling as she pressed her hands against the glass. Energy rippled outward, shields bending, hunters thrown aside. The soldier guided the ship through the chaos, weaving between death and fire. Every move was life or death. Every second a heartbeat closer to the end. A human destroyer loomed ahead, massive, its guns burning. The comms barked again. Last chance, surrender the subject. The soldier's voice was ice. She is not a subject. She is not a thing. She is family now. The destroyer fired, a blast that could split worlds. The girl cried out, her voice breaking into a scream. Power surged from her body, brighter than any star. The blast shattered against her force, flames scattering into nothing. The fleet staggered, their formation breaking, fear rising among them. She fell to her knees, her strength fading. The soldier caught her, his voice sharp with worry. "You'll kill yourself if you keep this up." Her eyes met his, glowing faint, tears shining. "Tell me," she whispered, "am I human?" The soldier held her close, his voice firm, his words clear. "You are more human than all of them, because you can choose, because you can care." Her breath caught, her tears falling. In that moment, her fear broke, replaced by fire. She rose again, her hands trembling but steady. Her voice rang out, not weak this time, but strong. "I choose freedom. I choose life." The power burst from her once more, but this time it was not wild. It was focused, sharp, alive. Hunters shattered, merchants scattered, even the human ships. Pulled back in fear, the stars lit with fire, but in the center of it, she stood unbroken. The fleet retreated, their voices silent, their courage gone. The soldier guided the ship into quiet space, the battlefield behind them. The girl collapsed once more, weak but alive. He held her close, his chest heavy, his eyes steady. "You did it," he said, his voice soft. "You chose for yourself." Her lips curved into the smallest smile, fragile but real. "For the first time," she whispered, "I feel alive." The stars stretched endless before them, a road without end. They had no home, no safe harbor, no peace waiting, but they had each other, and that was enough. The girl leaned against him, her eyes closing. "Where will we go now?" she asked softly. The soldier looked at the stars, his voice calm. "Anywhere we want." The ship vanished into the dark, leaving only silence behind. The girl who was once a chained weapon was free, the soldier who once followed orders was free, and together they carried the choice of humanity, the choice to protect, the choice to live, the choice to be more than what they were made for.